Yeah. Okay, just making sure the mic is there. Hi Gutgo. Hi Micro Ice. Today we're gonna be studying some Japanese. Ohayo minasan. Kyou wa Nihongo wo benkyou shimasu. Hi! Hi! Konnichiwa, Jet. Come on. My mom today's making me here. Yay! I love it when you're here, son. Today I have like a little bit of a weird setup. To be honest. I'm temporarily living in a different house. I only have 2 monitors. And instead of being like, kind of like at an angle with each other, they're like flat next to each other. I don't know Japanese, so hi. All I said was, good morning, everyone. Today we're studying Japanese. That's all I said. I'm trying to, anytime I can say a sentence in Japanese, I'm trying to say it so I can get speaking practice. Yeah. No. Are you all ready to be weebs today? Oh, shit. Okay, hold on. My model's gonna get weird. I forgot my book. I forgot the Japanese book. I'll be right back. Okay. I knew I forgot something. I'm learning Japanese because, a few reasons. Well, I lived there for 4 months, and it's kind of pathetic that I didn't retain much. I just want to read manga, if I'm being honest. I don't really know why. I just think it's a pretty language. Shit, sugoi emotes. Yeah! Yeah, the candy cane look. Yeah. Didn't you I thought you were lurking in my stream yesterday, Jet, while we were streaming together. I thought you saw this. Okay. Alright. Ooh, no one's redeemed that in a long time. Hold on. It's not like I like you or anything. Is that good? I can do it again if you want. Oh, I forgot to say the name. Fuck! It's been so long. It's not like I like you or anything, Reaper. Ah! Yeah, I know. I did it again. I'm rusty. No one ever redeems that. I'm glad. Yeah, no one ever redeems that, sorry. I'm not used to it. Okay. Oh, hello. Oh my god, wait. My model stopped moving. Okay, hold on. I'll do the Valley Girl accent, but let me figure out what the hell is going on with, model? Why are you not working? What? Hold on. Sorry, why did this just stop? Wait, are we back? Yeah, what's happening? Okay, why am I... Hi, Tovi. Sorry, we're having some difficulty right now. I don't know why. There we go. Okay, Valley Girl accent. Let me start the time. Okay, so like, I don't know how I'm gonna study with this accent because it takes a lot of my brain power. But thank you for redeeming it. Yeah, I'm glad I fixed my model. I don't really know what happened, because on my iPhone, it was like totally tracking. Holvi, you have like such bad luck coming in when the Valley Girl accent's redeemed. You should go like check that out. Totally. It happens like every time. Although yesterday, didn't you like redeem it? Is it you really think it's good? Thanks. Yeah, Toby. I'm glad everyone's enjoying themselves. So like, let's go into the Nihongo. Yeah. Sin, you like don't sound this bad. Okay, I'm like over dramatizing it. Right, Toby? Yeah, you would never. I'm really glad that this redeem is only for 5 minutes. I don't know if I could switch out of it if we did it for 10 minutes. Okay, so last time we studied family. And this time we're gonna be studying, actually, I don't know, let me open up my book. Section 2 is eating habits. Well, it's a good thing that I actually have my breakfast here because I woke up a little late. I had some bread this morning with butter, and now I'm eating a banana and some apples. Aww. I'm pretty sure the redeem itself says that I do it for 5 minutes. You cannot ask for this. Yeah. I tried to make it that expensive because it lasts for 5 minutes. It's a glorious 5 minutes, like totally. Yeah. I did warn you what you're like getting into. We're halfway there though, so don't worry if you're hating this. So we're gonna create a new set. Study set. Alright, so this is eating habits. No kanji. Hopefully we'll get to the kanji later, but I'm not too worried about it because I'm still actually studying the kanji for the last set. Okay, luckily looking at these words, I think I know a lot of them already. I just got like the banana stringy stuff on my shirt, so like hold on a sec. Okay, so banana is fighting back. I absolutely totally love bananas. I don't know if I'm gonna add a description. I don't really care too much. Oh, by the way, if you're in my Discord, in the Japanese stuff channel, I pinned the folder that I'm gonna be putting all my study sets in. So if you want to practice too, you can. Okay, I forgot how small the text is for like this book, so this is gonna be a struggle. Breakfast. And it's a good thing that Hardgrind last time told me how to use the language change thing. So I can change to Japanese really easily. I forgot how to read hiragana. Hiragana. Is that cho? Cho. Okay, we're free. I know some Greek Japanese words that I think everyone should know. It's almost like a song. Oh god. We came at the perfect time. legend. Milk. You guys are awesome. Okay, we have to. I'm gonna be better than Lulu. I'm actually gonna study. Okay, this is choku. Breakfast. Shoku. Morning. Okay, this is not how you do morning in Japanese. This is wrong. Hold on. I gotta switch. The alerts are doubled. Oh? Are they? NANI? NANI? We heard oh. I know why. Hold on. No following sound alerts. El gato. No. Desktop. There we go. Hold on. I think my father's speaking in the background. I have to keep my door open for the cat, but I'm gonna close it because I think he's sleeping right now. Honk! Okay, hold on. Do you have sound alerts on output and desktop? Yeah, I do, but that's because I like hearing it. Hold on. Ugh. Oh, I know. I see what you mean, Elfie. I know what I could do. We could change. I really need to get thing done. Properties. Sound alerts. Okay, well, the issue is not all of my scenes have desktop. I don't know. I'm gonna. The way it is right now. Okay. Okay, what are we doing? Okay. Morning. And this is like kind of cheap, honestly. Instead of saying asa, which I'm pretty sure is morning, it's saying mo. If I say morning. Hold on. Good. Why isn't it letting me do katakana? This is stupid. I'm out of biddies. I got 5. Ah, 5 honks. Okay, hold on. Herald of Buddha, thank you for the follow. Okay. Kata kana keyboard. Yes, thank you. I don't know how the Japanese keyboard works. Thank you. Oh, thank God. You saved me. Okay, lunch. Lunch. And boop. Is 2. 2. So. Glad. I do have jorts though. Yeah. Wait, how many jorts do you have? Oh, let's just make sure that's right. So, shoku. And there's another word for lunch. Lunch. Wow. Haha. Gotta switch these. I wonder if there's a hotkey I could do to switch them. Wait 10 minutes. Cutesy voice. Y'all are like kind of really pushing me this morning. I just want to study. Okay, and I have to add a vote of the model. Guys, I really just want to. I just want to study. You guys are so mean. study, only entertain. No study, only entertain when I'm supposed to study. I have a test next year. I have to study. Okay, I got right. Okay, did I get all of the redeems? Lunch. I'm gonna say English, because I need to know the difference between them. Lunch. Milk. Kawaii. Arigato. I'm really embarrassed though. I don't like doing this voice on stream. Is this katakana? Yeah. Okay. Is danchu. Danchu. Oh, it's a good thing it's only 10 minutes. Yeah. Danchu. No, it's lunch. Not danchu. Ranch. It kind of sounds like ranch. Ranch. English. Dinner. You know, it's weird. I think in Japanese, my Japanese class, I learned the words for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And these are not the same words. These are not the same words that I learned. I learned the words with gohan in them. That means rice or meal. Yeah. Oh, can I read hiragana? Can I read? Yushoku. Yushoku. Starting to see a pattern. Now many. We got 7 whole minutes. You guys are killing me. I gotta eat some banana though. Okay. 7 minutes. No. No. I can't read katakana. I love to hear a valid cutesy combo. I don't know if I'm able to do that. Okay? I think that would actually hurt my throat. I want to eat some apple now though. Oh. No. Then, oh, wrong keyboard. Dinner. English. I might just implode if that happens. Why? Why? Why would you implode? Did I really close the keyboard? Come on. Katakana. I'm digging this song a lot. Yeah, but I want a small E. How do I do a small E? Oh. Na. Dinner. I'm glad this is cozy. Wait. You say cozy, but is it really cozy if I don't have a blanket? Okay. There we go. Oh, hello, that's not right. There we go. Now we're cozy. Yeah, remember the blankie. Yeah, remember the blankie. Oh, my favorite word. Dessert. I really like dessert. I like food. You know, okay, I was talking to... Oh, I'm glad you wrapped up and comfy too, Elfie. I was talking to Mr. Hardgrant, and I was like, if I wasn't a dinosaur VTuber, what animal VTuber would I be? And he said a hamster. Because I'm always eating on stream. It's so mean. He's so mean. Not a hamster. It's not fitting. You guys are stupid. Set. No, it's sa. Sa. No, I want sa. Desato. Desato. I'm gonna remember this one. Where's the line? Desat. Not a hamster. Desato. I do like me some apple. Oh. I'm eating a Granny Smith apple in slices. You can never finish an apple when it isn't sliced. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a baby. Watashi wa aka-chan. I'm baby. Oh, another one of my favorite words. Why is it no caps? Wait. No. Nah. Merry Christmas. Hi, calls. I can't believe you guys agree that I'm a hamster. I'm dumb. And snack. Oyatsu. Oyatsu. That's not. Oh, oyatsu. That's convenient. Snack. And then side dish. Side. Oh, hello. Let me click here. Okay. Side dish. Hazu. Hazu. Okay. A bento. I'm just gonna say box lunch because I know what a now. I know what a bento is. It's a box lunch. Bento. Wow. It's gonna be bento. Who would have guessed? Wow. Bento. Cooking for oneself. Why is this a word? Cooking pretends to be sucked. Yeah. Cooking for oneself. There we go. How much time do we have left? Oh, we got a minute. Thank God. It's so embarrassing talking like this. Cooking for oneself. Oh, it's a pseudo verb. No! 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 Take it back! Toby, take it back! Can I read this? I don't know if I can read this. Hold on. That's E. G. Su. E. I'm gonna say we want this to be a verb, so no. No! You guys are ganging up on me, and that's not very cash money of you. Okay, I'm free now. Oh! It's so embarrassing. To cook for oneself. Face defeat. You're outnumbered. No! Stop it! Stop it. This is my chat. Don't gang up on me. You cook for oneself. Nom nom. I love apples. Literally. Oh my god, apples are so good. Where were we? Oh wait, it's G Sui Suru. Hamster. No, not a hamster. Oh. Do hamsters even eat apples? I feel like apples are too big for hamsters. I don't know. I'm not in denial. I'm a dinosaur. Honestly, Coles, that's something I would do. I bought all of the games. I could stream them at any point. Okay, no one's redeemed Hydrate, so I'm just gonna chug for a bit. Cause unlike other streamers, I'm not like other streamers. I like being hydrated. Okay, hamsters do not chug. Shots. No. No shots. Come on, I gotta study. How many? Okay, first of all, section 2. Oh, wait, guys, no. I'm doing the wrong section. Oh my god. My fucking god. Okay. I'm just gonna create this one. We're doing the wrong section. I'm so mad. I got it wrong. This is the section 2 of lesson 2. Not the section 2 of lesson 1. We learned some things today, though. God. Okay. That's fine. We'll do this super fast. Okay, so this is friends and... How do you even spell acquaintances? Oh, it's tances. Okay, this is gonna be no kanji. We're gonna speedrun this. Acquaintance. Oh, hi, Ma. Oh, added the bow. Okay, I will add the bow. Add it there. Ah. There we go. I've added the bow. Oh my god. And add another one. Come on, guys. I need to speedrun this. There you go. Was on the case. Yeah. Doing my job. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Where did my title go? There we go. Gonna speedrun this. Okay. Close. Ugh, I have the wrong key. Close friends. No, close friend. Okay. Write it out. Chin? You. In you. Right. Okay. Friend. This has, Look at this dino hamster trying to tell us she ain't cute, but wears bows. Oh, come on! I'm not a hamster! Oh, it's the bird conversation all over again. Okay, so this word means comrade, mate, friend, fellow member of a group. So I'm just gonna say mate, cause that could be like teammate, clubmate, not choose language. I need to choose the language. This will be easier for me. I choose Japanese. It's not ka. No. Bro. Bruh? Oh, nice. Close friend, intimate friend. Oh, like me and Elfie. God, we have to speed run this. Because I need to actually study close friend. I just want, is it... Where to use that? Why are there 2 words for close friend? Hold on. Intimate friend. There we go. Okay. Okay, it's Naka Yoshi. Naka Yoshi. Okay. Osana. Okay, childhood friend. Why are there childhood friend? We're gonna a lot of friends. A lot of different types of friends. Osana. Switching between these keyboards is better than having the, like, digital keyboard, I think, but it's still hard to remember. Oh, sa, na. I hope I don't make any mistakes. Osana, na, Jimi. G. Yep, seems correct. Friendship. Okay. Friendship. Nakama, bro. Nakayoshi. Romance. Wait, what? Nakayoshi? Wait, I'm confused, Elfie. What? I would like just the hiragana, please. Dumb Quizlet. Okay, friendship is you. Yo. Lily, what's your favorite type of cheese? Depends on the occasion. So, like, I really like smoked cheeses, like smoked Gouda, and smoked cheddar. But I really like, there's just, like, cranberry cream, it's not cream cheese, but, like, this, like, kind of creamy cheese. It starts with a W, I don't know what the cheese is, but it has, like, cranberries in it, and it's so good. Yeah, depends on the situation, like a breakfast cheese or like a wine tasting cheese. I don't know. I really like cheese. I really like cheese, okay? Lately pepper jack. I don't like pepper jack that much, honestly. Intimate. Intimate. Itashi. Ta. Itashi. Oh, Munster. Yeah, I used to love Munster when I was little. This dine no is fancier than I thought. I have very refined tastes. I love food, okay? I love food. Don't underestimate my love for food. I don't drink wine though, by the way. Oh, shut up. Acquaintance. Acquisition, haha. Wow. I'm learning English too. Alright, I'll stop. Cho-jin. Okay. Cho-jin. I actually know the kanji for... Oh, it's not cho, it's chi. My bad. Ijin. Oh, Jin. It's like person. Ito. Member. Be easy. Member. Member is ba. Member. Super easy to remember. Member. 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 There we go. To put together. Oh no, this means like to... God, there are 2 words. Wait. Okay, so the reason I'm looking at the book so much is because there's tsunagu, okay, and that is to put together, and there's tsunagaru, which is to be put together. And it's like, oh come on. Tsu na gu. Tsunagu. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do tsu na got it. That's totally gonna fuck me up. I'm digging this music still though. To be put together. Here we go. How many words are in this? There's 19 words in this one. Okay. Is learning Japanese a school thing or leisure? Neither. Neither? Wouldn't say it's a leisure. I want to live in Japan, which means I have to pass the JLPT to get a job. I miss living in Japan and I want to go back, and visas are really hard to get. so I don't know if you guys know what the JLPT is, but it's the Japanese language proficiency test, and it's held in December internationally. So I'm studying for next year's test. There are 5 levels, 5 being the most basic and 1 being like not only fluency but like legal jargon fluency. So right now I'm studying for the N3, which is like basic fluency. It's like you can hold normal conversations, but you might not be able to talk about specialized things yet. While N2 is like fluency, like normal people fluency. So I'm studying for the N3 this year and then the N2 next year. So, yeah. I really gotta do it. Yeah, I like learning. I wish I could be, paid to just learn, okay? That'd be so cool. Wow. Apple time. Okay. At that time. Sorry, my brain just like disappeared. Yeah. Yep, that's correct. Where to thank you? To celebrate, so I'm just gonna do Japanese first. Wa. Yeah, I know a lot of people who enjoy VTubers, like the anime-styled VTubers, really like Japanese, so I'm gonna be streaming it a lot. People seem to be interested in it. And by a lot, I mean I'm gonna be streaming this twice a week. I still need time for video games. Okay, to celebrate. There we go. Celebrate. To hesitate. Okay, hold on. Okay, so it's like really hard to study with his accent, so I might actually do like a cooldown on it. A really long cooldown, because like you guys are going ham with the redeems today, more than usual. So yeah, okay, so like to hesitate. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. When I say the Japanese words, for my own sanity, I'm not going to say them in the Valley Girl accent, just because I want my pronunciation to be good, if that's okay. Oh, thank you for the lurk, Toby. The boys need gaming. Thank you. I appreciate your participation. Thank you for the redeem, Micro. You keep me alive. So, to hesitate. To hesitate, the book says it's an yeah. To hesitate. Yeah. Oh, out of bow? The Valley Girl infection. Yeah, I know, right? I'm glad you now know what the Valley Girl redeem is. There's your bow. Ah, okay. I'll bring chat back up. Okay. I can finally move on to the next page, yay! Often? Frequently. Often. Oh my god, I did that with the wrong keyboard again. Often. Okay. Ooh. Oh. Not really sure how to write out the smaltsu. I'm being honest. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna go to the hiragana keyboard for a sec, because I don't really know how to type out this matsu with this keyboard. I'm gonna have to ask Card Grind later how to do it. I'm still learning how to function clearly. Shit. Yeah. My biggest fear is knowing that one day we'll run out of unique VTubers. I don't really think we'll ever run out, personally. Especially since I keep seeing a lot of VTubers who are not unique. The ideas aren't like being explored too much. So I don't really think you're gonna ever run out. Because there are an infinite amount of items that people can become VTubers of. Like, I already saw a stream overlay VTuber. And people are just gonna get more and more creative. Yeah, we're talking about the same one, I think. But honestly, I think if we look at the most popular ones, especially indie ones, a lot of their ideas aren't very unique. So I think smaller VTubers are probably gonna like stay pretty unique. But the most popular ones, the ones that get most visibility, probably won't be as unique. Because, I mean, like, how many Catgirl and Dragon VTubers are, like, really popular, you know? Because there's so many of them. Okay, I'm free! Ah! Okay. Now I can focus on studying! No, it's shochu. 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 Yeah. I mean, unique doesn't automatically mean good. You're right, I'm a cat boy. There's nothing wrong with being a cat boy or cat girl. Like, you don't have to be unique. You just have to... you have to be unique in some way. It doesn't mean the concept has to be unique. Often... Oh, again, and I'm gonna just say... repeatedly... Tahi tahi. Oh, not tahi, it's tabi. Tabi. Okay. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Occasionally. You know, I'm just gonna type these all out in English. Occasionally, by chance, interesting. Rarely. Oh. Rarely. I wonder what happens to all of your text that you type in that isn't in a text box. Where does it go? A while. There we go. Different. The FBI database. True. You're right. Okay, occasionally. Might. Amani. No, it's not E, it's ni. Amani. By chance. is tamatama. Tamatama. Rarely. Met honey. Meh. Right, that's meh. I think it's still copied. Okay. Meh. Ha. Ha. Ni. Meh. Tani. Okay. I think we're almost done with this. 20 words. Okay, a while is she ba da ku. She ba da ku. And then this one is, give me the option, it does not. Be, I think it's be, yeah, be, to, betsu, yeah, betsu, it's a na adjective. Okay, cool. I would not like to. I would, however, add it here. So if you guys are in my Discord and the Japanese language folder, I'm not gonna add the eating habits. Okay. We'll add the kanji for it later. We can do that around 11, actually. So let's study this for an hour. I'm gonna eat more apples though. Watching me. It's eating ASMR time now. I'm eating. Hi, Fetish. So we're gonna study this English to Japanese, and then we'll do it the other way around. We'll keep alternating. It's only, I mean, it's like 10 a.m. It's not that early. It's early for me to stream, but I'm in a different house right now, so I don't have issues with glare, which means I can stream in the mornings. And I'm more productive in the mornings. I also wanted to do this in case any Japanese viewers wanted to hop in. This would be a slightly more reasonable time than, I don't know, like 4 a.m. Yeah. Oh. Need to finish my breakfast before lunchtime. Okay, I'll take some water. Probably gonna have to take a pee break soon. I've been drinking too much agua. Too much mizu. Okay. Wait, I thought we were doing English first. Hold on. Answer. We want apples. Start over. And I would like to shuffle this. Intimate. Okay, the music is annoying me. Hold on. Hold on. I can't study with music. Advanced property settings. Where is it? Christmas music. Monitor off. Oh, thank you. Okay. Now you guys can hear the music and I can't. Okay. This was what? Intimate. So, and this is an adjective. It's like something intimate. Okay. Shita. Shitashi. Shitashi. Intimate. Shitashi. Shitashi. Okay. To be put together. Also to connect. Tsunagaru. 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 To be put together. Different. Betsu betsu. Friendship. Yeah, I think that's you. Member. Member. Menba? That doesn't sound right. Hold on. Did I write that correctly? Yeah, it's Menba. Menba. Interesting. Mate. Naka. This is okay. I should probably edit this. Mate. Friend. There we go. Mate, friend. Not like a mate, someone you mate with, but like a friend. Okay. Mate. Nakama. Mate. Nakama. It's interesting. Okay. This must be like really formal Japanese because Tomodachi wasn't on this list. I think that's kind of important word. I don't know. Maybe. Tomodachi? Friend? Interesting. Okay. A while. Shibaraku. Shibaraku. A while. Shibaraku. Close friend. Shinyu. Shinyu. Close friend. Shinyu. Occasionally. Tamani. Tamani. Occasionally. Tamani. To hesitate. Enryo suru. Enryo suru. Enryo suru. Yeah. Enryo suru. Wait, what was that? That was to hesitate? Enryo suru. Rarely. Metani. 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 I feel like I'm a crazy person. I'm just saying sounds. By chance. Tamatama. By chance. Tamatama. Childhood friend. Osanana. Najimi. Wait. That's sa, right? Yeah. Osana. Najimi. Osana. Childhood friend. Osana. Najimi. At that time. Toji. At that time. Intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Acquaintance. Sajin. Oh, and that's Jin like person. So it's not Sa, that's Chijin. I always confuse those two hiragana. Acquaintance is Chijin. To put together. Tsunagu. Often. I'm pretty sure I learned this as yoku, but that's not what it is. Okay. Shochu. Often. Shochu. To celebrate. Iwau. Celebrate. Iwau. Repeatedly. Tabi. Repeatedly. Tabi. Okay, I didn't get any of those. I didn't get any of those. Okay. We're gonna do this repeatedly until we get it. Although I'm gonna shuffle to make it. A while. Shibaraku. Shibaraku. A while. Shibaraku. Different. Betsu betsu. Different is betsu betsu. We put together. That would be... It ends in a gu. Tsunagu. Tsunagu. To put together. To put together. Tsunagu. Member. Menba. 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 You know what I could do? Okay. First one? Yeah. I'm gonna start these. Okay, I got one correct. Menba. To be put together, it's tsunagaru. Tsunagaru. Okay, I got that one right. Intimate. Shitashi. Shitashi. Intimate. Shitashi. Occasionally. Tamani. Occasionally. Tamani. I really like it when members say hi to each other in chat. Feels like a community, you know? I know, I'm sleepy. It's the morning. No. Okay. Occasionally. Y'all. You guys really like this redeem, huh? More bows! Yeah, more bows. I want to make them small so they look like cuter, I guess. Oh, wait. That button. There we go. Okay, occasionally. Tamani. Acquaintance. It's Jean. It's something Jean. Because it's like a person. I think it's Sa... Why is my model frozen again? What the hell? VC face is being stupid. Huh. So weird. I don't know why it's the second time it's done it today, but it's never done that before. Acquaintance. I think it's like... I don't know. First of all, I spelled this wrong. But that's fine. Okay, I think... It's saying Acquaintance. I don't know why. Okay, Acquaintance. Chijin. Chijin. Wait, have I been starring them? Yeah. Hoji. Hoji. Oh, no, I don't want the sound on. Off. At that time. Toji. Toji. Repeatedly. Tabi tabi. Repeatedly. Tabi tabi. By chance. Tamatama. A chance. Tamatama. To celebrate. Iwao. To celebrate. Iwao. rarely, metani, metani, tani, metani, friendship. You, I don't know why reading this one always gets me. It's Yujo. Friendship. Yujo. Close friend. Shinyu. Okay, so you probably has to do with tomodachi. Close friend. Tomodachi is not on this list. I don't know why it's not on this list. But it isn't, so rip us. Also, don't give me any hints, please. Thank you. Because actually, my chat isn't that delayed. Yeah, I do want to study. Thank you. Close friend. Shinyu. Close friend. Shinyu. To hesitate. I won't hesitate, bitch. To hesitate. Oh wait, I didn't start this one. You need to start these. To hesitate. En yo suru. En yo suru. En yo suru. I don't know why my mouth sensitivity isn't like normal. I feel like it's less sensitive than usual, and I don't really know why. Strange. Okay. And hesitate. Mate. Friend. Nakama. Nakama. Mate. Nakama. Often. Okay. Shochu. Childhood friend. Osana najimi. Osana najimi. Osana najimi. Intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Nakayoshi. I think that Naka means like close or something. I feel like I remember that. Nakayoshi. Intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Wait, why are, I think... Okay, yeah, 18, that sounds right. Okay. Acquaintance. That's, Jijin. Jijin. Yeah, okay, I got that one right. Intimate. Shitashi. Intimate. To put together. That would be, tsunagu. Okay. Friendship. Yujo. Okay. Yujo. By chance. Tamatama. By chance. Tamatama. A while. Shibaraku. A while is shibaraku. To hesitate. En ryosuru. That's so hard to say. The N sound into the R sound is really hard to roll off the tongue for me. I don't know why. En ryosuru. Intimate. Shitashi. Intimate. Shitashi. At that time. Toji. At that time. Toji. Oh, wait. G is used for time. Okay. Wait. G is typically used for time. I don't know if it's the same kanji, but hold on, let me check. We're not doing kanji right now. You know, kanji, we say we hate kanji. Kanji can be really useful in remembering words, honestly. Where is it? Oh, that's the wrong section too. I went to the food one again. Cousin to take yours and both. No, that's last time's. At that time. Yeah, it is the same G. It is the same G, as here. Okay. Kanji. Kanji alive. You come. This is the website I use for kanji stuff. It's very good. I'll show you the kanji I'm talking about. It's this one. G. Yeah. So, at that time, for us, is toji. Toji. And the G in toji is time. So here, yeah, it has it right here. This word. Toji, so that's the other kanji. Yeah, toji. Okay. At least I'll remember the G now. At that time, toji. Rarely. Metani. Metani. Rarely. Metani. To celebrate. Iwau. Iwau. Okay. I got that one right. At that time. Starting this one. Was Toji. Toji. Yeah, but we already studied that one, so that's fine. Shibaraku. Shibaraku. A while. A while is shibaraku. Is it a while or a moment as a definition? So like, I think it's in the context of saying like, oh, we'll meet in a while, or I'll talk to you in a moment, kind of thing. Childhood friend has like a na in it somewhere. I don't know. Osana najimi. Osana najimi. Seems like another one the kanji. Learning the kanji would be useful for. Not sure though. Hold on a sec. Hello? Okay. Childhood friend. I just want to make sure. Childhood friend. We said it was like Osana Najimi. Okay, Osana Najimi. Close friend. Shinyu. 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 Close friend. Shinyu. You probably, the kanji has to do with friend, I think, because I'm seeing that a lot. Shinyu. Often. Yoku. I'm gonna say that every time. Often is yoku. God. I can't get that out of my head. That's what I learned in Japanese class. Often is yoku. Okay, often, I'm gonna have to, I guess, get that out of my head for this test. Oh well. Often is shochu. Shochu. That kind of sounds like yoku. Shochu. Often, shochu. Wait, friend. Nakama. Nakama. A mate. Nakama. Repeatedly. Tabi tabi. Tabi tabi. Repeatedly. Because you say it 2 times. Tabi tabi. Different. I think there's like an M sound in here. Nope, I was completely wrong. Betsu betsu. Different. Betsu betsu. Something that is different is betsu betsu. Intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Nakayoshi. Another one kanji might be useful for. Nakayoshi. Okay. I'm gonna be right back. No one's allowed to leave. None of you. I'm watching you. None of you are allowed to leave. I'm gonna go to the bathroom quickly, and then I'll be like right back. Yeah. Because I've been drinking too much mizu. Too much agua. I need to use the little dino's room. So I'll be right back. No one leave. You guys get to listen to nice Christmas music while I'm gone. Okay, I'm back. Hi. I hope I didn't take too long. Thank you, Fedez. Cozy. Yeah, we're cozy today. Yeah. Oof. I'm tired. How much time have we got left? Okay, we got like an hour and 30. Thank you, Gutgo. Okay. Okay, we're gonna keep studying this. We're gonna be studying it this way. And then we're gonna be doing learn. And then we're gonna study it the other way and then do learn. Okay, occasionally. Tamani. Tamani. Occasionally, tamani. I might need an apple. So. No. By chance. Tama. By chance. Tama. Interesting. To hesitate. Enryosuru. Oh, I think I need a cough drop actually. No more apple, only cough drop. Because I feel a lot better than I did yesterday and the day before. However, I still feel kind of sicky. So I'm gonna try to take it a little easy. So I got really dizzy yesterday. To hesitate. It's like, I know we just did this one. Enryosuru. Okay. Friendship. You draw. Intimate. Shitashi. Rarely. Metani. Rarely. Metani. At that time, it has the okay. I know the time is G because it's the same kanji, but it's like maybe choji. No, it's toji. Okay, a while. shibaraku, a while. Childhood friend is osana najimi. Okay, I'm getting there. Osana najimi. Osana najimi. Close friend. Shinyu. Often. That's not yoku. Oh my god. Jochu. Mate, friend. Nakama. Repeatedly. Tabi. Repeatedly. Tabi. Different. Betsu. Different. Betsu. I feel like I heard that in like an anime before. I don't know why. Agua good. Water good. Oh, I think I can say that in Japanese. Hold on. Mizu wa ii desu. No. That's not what I think it means. Okay, never mind. Because I just said water is fine. Water is good. Oh well. Intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Okay. Occasionally. Jochu. Not even. That's often. Occasionally. Tamani. By chance. Tamatama. Do hesitate. En ryosuru. That one right. By chance. Tamatama. Childhood friend. Osana najimi. Friendship. Yujo. Rarely. Metani. Intimate. Shitashi. Occasionally. Tamani. A while. Shibaraku. A while. Close friend is some. Oh wait. Nakayu. No. Shinyu is close friend. Often. Shochu. Wow, I got that one right. Finally. Repeatedly. I think it's tabi. Nice. At that time. Toji. Oh, hell yeah. I'm getting them, guys. Intimate. Shitashi. Intimate. Shitashi. Close friend. Did we do this? Shinyu. Yeah, we did this. Shinyu. Occasionally. Tamani. Different. Betsu. Mate. Friend. Nakama. Okay. Let's do some learn. I got almost like half of them. Close friend. Is Shinyu. Mate. Nakama. Intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Childhood friend. Osana najimi. Friendship is Yujo. Intimate. is I think it's shitashi. Shitashi, yeah, acquaintance. Chijin. Chijin. Okay. The multiple choice is really easy. Member. Member. To put together. Tsunagu. Tsunagu. To be put together. That's tsunagaru. Close friend. I don't remember this one. Shinyu. 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 Okay. Mate, friend. I think that's it's hard to find where these things are. It's na, ka, and I think ma, kama. Yeah, nakama. A mate, nakama. Intimate friend. Ooh, and probably with you again. Hydrate and slurp. Okay. And ooh, thank you for the posture check. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Intimate friend. Probably ends in you, but I don't know what the beginning is. Naka yo. Oh, okay. Intimate friend is Nakayoshi. An intimate friend is Nakayoshi. Childhood friend is Osana na Osana na I don't remember. Osana na I don't know. I'm just gonna answer that. Osana najimi. Osana najimi. Okay. Close friend. It's like it has you in it. I don't know. Don't know. Shinyu. Shinyu. Close friend. Shinyu. Intimate friend. That's Naka. I'm just gonna type it. Naka. I don't remember. Nakayoshi. 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 Intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Childhood friend. Osana. Sana na. Oh my god, it's always the last two hiragana that I can't remember. Osana najimi. Osana najimi. Najimi. Osana najimi. Friendship. It starts with you. You. I don't know. You. Do. You. Do. You do. You do. Intimate. I don't know that word. Shitashi, intimate. Acquaintance. Okay, I think I know this one. It's Chijin. Yeah, acquaintance. Cool. Member. We're gonna do the Kaneki word. Men. Me. Am I a bunch? Okay. Me. Menba. Wait. No. I think it's men. Where's ba? Oh. I'm done. I think it's that. I think that's the spelling. Okay, yeah, I got that one right. Close friend. Close friend is like Yoshi you. No, I don't know what I'm thinking of. Shin-yu. Oopsies. Okay. Shin-yu. Close friend. Shin-yu. Intimate friend. Oh wait, is this one Yoshi? One of them's Yoshi. Well, Yoshi. Wow. Nakayoshi. I'm dumb. Okay, Nakayoshi. It did have a Yoshi in it. Childhood friend. Okay, am I gonna get this one this time? Osana. Na. Ji. Oh, me. Hajimi. Friendship. You. I don't know. You. Jo. Intimate. I don't know this one. Shitashi. Intimate. Shitashi. To put together. That was. Tsu. Tsunagu. Tsunagu. To be put together is different. It's tsunagaru. Tsunagaru. Close friend. Will we ever get this? I don't remember. Close friend. Shin-yu. Shin-yu. Shin. It's Shin-yu. I'm dying. I'm dying. Okay, intimate friend. Nakayoshi. Finally. Friendship. You. I think it's you. Jo. You Jo. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Intimate. Shin. I think it's Shin something. She, I think, or something like that. Shitashi. Okay. Shitashi. I'm getting closer. Intimate is Shitashi. Shitashi. At that time. Koji. To celebrate. Iwau. To hesitate. Every time I see to hesitate, I think, I won't hesitate, bitch. I don't know why. To hesitate. Endyosuru. To hesitate. Endyosuru. Close friend. Will I get this one ever? I don't know. I don't know. Shin-yu or oh, Shin. Oh, come on. I just typed it wrong. Okay, you know what? No. I'm right. I'm right on that one. Intimate. Shitashi. Intimate. I'm getting them. Okay, often. So true. It's often. Repeatedly. Tama tama? No, it's tabi tabi. Repeatedly, tabi tabi. Occasionally. I know which two it's not. Occasionally. I say tamani. Occasionally, tamani. Repeatedly. Tabi tabi. Oh my god. By chance. By chance. Not this one. That means intimate. It's this one. It's shibaraku. No, it's tama tama. Oh my god. By chance is tama tama. Ah! Repeatedly. Tabi tabi. By chance. Tama tama. Rarely. Metani. Metani. A while. Shibaraku. A while. Shibaraku. Different. Betsu betsu. Oh, I feel like I've heard Betsuni in anime. I don't know what that means though. Betsu. At that time, that would be Chi. Yeah. Okay. How good is the setting? I'm learning some of them. We are learning. We are learning. That's all I can say. We are learning. It goes slow though. This is wow. I don't have water. We'll go get water. Also, nice emote, nerd. To hesitate. And okay, N yo su ru. And yo suru. Often. Cho chu. No, like water from the tap. Oh. Ugh. I guess you can't shower. That means you're gonna be stinky. Repeatedly. Tabi tabi. Nice. I don't know if I got that one right. Hope it comes back. Yeah, me too. Occasionally. I don't know this one. Tamani. Occasionally. Tamani. By chance. Isn't that tama tama? Wait. I think that's tama. By chance is tama tama. Yeah. Underground my ice cream container underwater to soften it. You could use the microwave for like I would like do like 5 seconds. That softens ice cream. Rarely. Met. It's like metani. Metani. Yeah, rarely. Metani. Ooh, a while. I don't know that one. Shibaraku. A while. Shibaraku. Yeah, I could. 30. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Actually, I haven't checked my throat to see if people have bought me stuff. Do that after the stream though. Different. Betsu. Betsu. I'm learning. Oh my god. Continue. Occasionally. I don't know. Tamani. Occasionally. Tamani. A while is so it ends in like a raku or something. Shibaraku. A while. Oh, those are the only 2 left. Okay. Occasionally. Tama. Oh god, the autocorrect. Autocorrect. How could you? It spoiled it for me. A while. A while. Looking at your throne, I got that cat paw cup for a friend and she loved it. Yeah, I really want it. I really like it. It's so cute. I feel like it'd be perfect for boba. I just don't drink a lot of boba. It'd be good for tea. Like morning iced tea. A while. A while. Ends in the raku. It ends in raku. What is the beginning of it? Don't know. Shibaraku. Continue. A while. Shiba. Raku. It spoiled it for me again. God damn it. Okay, we finished it. Wait, okay, we're gonna go to flashcards now, but we're gonna do it the other way. Ibaraku. A while. Betsu betsu. Different. Tsunagu. It's like to put together. Tsunagu. Put together, yeah. Member. Tsunagaru. That's to be put together. Hitashi, intimate. Wow, I am learning. Tamani. Is that like occasionally? Holy. Oh, I'm on a roll. Oh, this is acquaintance. It's Chijin. It's acquaintance. Toji at that time. Tabi repeatedly. Oof! I'm on fire! This Power Raptor is on fire. Tama. Oh no, I'm gonna fuck up on this. I don't know this one. By chance. Tama, by chance. Iwao, to celebrate. Metani. Metani. Rarely. Metani. Rarely. Oh, friendship. It's much easier to do Japanese to English if you guys can't tell. Which is why I start with the other one first. But it's important to study it both ways, I think. Honestly. And it helps train your brain anyway. Shinyu. Close friend? And Ryosuru. Ooh. Funny. Oh, to hesitate. I was gonna be like, I don't remember that one. Yes, I do. Nakama. I don't remember this one. Wait. Shochu. Often. Shochu. Often. Oh, this is childhood friend. I don't even have to read the words. Childhood friend. Osana Yumi. Childhood friend. Osana Najimi. Okay. Nakayoshi. That's intimate friend. Hahaha. Yay! Tamatama. Rarely. No, that's by chance. Metani. That's rarely. Kama. Hi, Naga. How are you doing today? Nakama. Nakami. You look like a strawberry dinosaur. I'm a candy cane dinosaur. Yeah. Nakama is just mate. Okay, well, you know what? Let's do learn. Let's learn. And then after this, we're gonna make the kanji flashcards. Yeah. To be put together. Oh wait, I wanna do this the other way. Answer with you. Yes. Oh, I gotta make sure my keyboard is back on English. There we go. Okay. Shinyu. Shinyu. I'm not right now. I'm looking at myself. I'm not even looking at the answer. Shinyu. Let's see if I can remember what it is without looking at the. Shinyu. You is friend. Shin. You. Close friend. Yeah. Okay. Nakama. I don't remember that one. But let's see. It's not at that time. Oh, it might be mate. Yeah, I think it's mate. Nakama. Nakayoshi. That's intimate friend. I know that one. Childhood friend. You. That's friendship. Hitachi, intimate. I know some of these. The hardest part is gonna be my English spelling, I think. That's acquaintance. Continue. I think this is going a lot better than the family vocab, honestly. Member. To put together. Got it. To be put together. Inyu. That's close. Oh, I changed you. There you. Okay. Close friend. There you go. Nakama. That's mate. Friend. Nakayoshi. Intimate friend. The great thing about my book is as we get through all of the sections and stuff, the great thing about this is it comes with there's a free website with practice tests. So when we get closer to the test, we'll start doing some practice tests. And that'll be fun. Oh, actually, it's not gonna be fun, but it might be entertaining for you guys. Childhood friend. Okay, cool. You go. Friendship. There we go. Hitachi, intimate. That's acquaintance. Okay, I just can't spell the word acquaintance. But I knew what the word was. Member. Okay. Tsunagu. You know, what do you guys think? Do you think I should contact Quizlet for a partnership? Do you think they do that? I don't know. I know Duolingo gives out partnerships and Quizlet does, but I wonder. I might email them. I might be like, hey, what's up? I use you a lot. Please give me money. Because I am also sharing the folders and stuff with y'all. Tsunagu, to put together. To be put together. Give money, please? Thank. Yeah, exactly. Hello, I am Christmas Dragon sponsor. I'm not a dragon, I'm a dinosaur. I'm not a dragon. Yeah, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna see what they say. It's like maybe they'll be like you have to be bigger. Dragons aren't extinct. They're mythical. What? Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what? Dragons aren't extinct. They're mythical. It's different though. Well, you use the thing, so maybe... Yeah, maybe they will give me a chance. Maybe they'll give me... Yeah, I don't really know. I know people get sponsored, and then they get money, so... Detective Coles knows more than we do. Okay, to be put together. Yeah. Yoji. Yoji, that's his time, so at that time. To celebrate. To hesitate. You know they're mythical because they went extinct and we destroyed the evidence. Please no I can't tell if you're joking. Please no conspiracy theories. Oh my god. Oh my god, guys, no! This is an educational stream. I have the educational tab. We will not be spreading any conspiracy theories today. You can do that in your own channels. It's not here. Oh, wait, it's show... Oh, that's often. I'm dumb. Actually, no, I'm smart. I got it right. Wait. Tabi. That's, repeatedly. It's like in Germany, with all the historical monuments relating to 19... Okay. I'm going to cut the conversation here. Okay. Tamani. Occasion. Hi, Dio. How are you doing? How are you doing today? Tamani. I'm gonna guess that's occasionally. Tama. By chance? Yeah. I'm not gonna remember that one. Metani. Rarely. Yeah, that seems right. I'm fine. Yeah. Yeah. Shibaraku a while. That's different. That's at that time. Good. To celebrate. That is to hesitate. That line is still going through my head every time I type. Oh, often. Tabi is repeatedly. Oh, I'm on a roll. Amani. I think that's occasionally. Amatama. I don't remember that one. Tamatama is by chance. Okay. Metani. I think that's rarely. Yeah. Shibaraku. A while. Betsu. Different. That's a not adjective, but does Quizlet have kanji quizzes? It doesn't. Well, okay. So the way Quizlet works is that people make their own study sets. So we're gonna be making a kanji study set when I'm done with this. So this is literally virtual flashcards. But the cool thing about this is when someone else makes a flashcard, you can actually like search for the sets. I like making them myself, because I'm like that. Yeah. So I have a folder in my Discord server that I shared with people in our Japanese chat. That people can use my sets if they want. Looks like Streamlabs. Yeah. Yeah, Quizlet's good. Tamatama. Is it by chance? Yes, cool. Yay! Finish learn. Okay, so we did that. That went much better than the other one. Okie dokie. So we're gonna create a study set, and we're gonna call this. I gotta open the book again. Friends and acquaintances. Oh, I spelled it right this time. So you can hop into my Discord server if you want the stuff I'm doing. Parallelly 99 implies there's another 98 Pyrolilies. There's not, but normal Pyrolily was taken. So, I thought 99 was cool. I don't know. Yeah, if you guys want to hop into my Discord, that's the command. And in the Japanese channel, I have the folder pinned. Right now, I'm gonna add this set when we're done, but there are 3 sets. It's what I did last time, and then what I did today. And every Japanese stream, I'll be adding sets to it. So Shin join the server. I'm ready, and yeah, but I don't know if Naga's in it already. So Shin you. So the way I make kanji sets, by the way, is I do it with a hiragana. So I always study the hiragana to English first, and then once I know all the words, then I study the kanji. Because then it at least helps me learn the onyomi or kunyomi of that given kanji in that. Nakama. Oh, it has a radical. So this radical, the line one with the box, it's just like this, not the whole word. This radical, it's the one for close, naka. Sama, naka. This is gonna be okay. Pretty easy. Naka. Yo. Yoshi. Nakayoshi. This one is going to be Oh wow, Streamlabs. Najimi. My brain just like died for a sec. Hold on. Restarting. No Streamlabs, I won't join your server. I'll only join. Please. Haha. Funny, 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 funny. Okay, friendship. You. Ooh. Sure. She. That's the right kanji, yeah. I'm alert now. Good luck with the studies. Thank you. I appreciate it. We're almost done. Because once I make the set, we're kind of... I do the kanji studying on my own. Because I like using a notebook for it. And I'm not really going to show that to you guys. I might take pictures of it when I'm done, maybe. Alright, I lost my place again. Wait. G. I think it's that one. Yeah, it's that one. It's just a different font. Okay. We don't need those. Oh. Gee. Oh, that's not right. It's to. Oh, gee. Yeah, some of these they don't put the kanji for, and I think it's because maybe it's like more advanced than this, I guess, grade level. I don't know. So the kanji sets are always smaller than the no kanji sets. Did I? Okay. Kanji. Here, this one is to hesitate. And without the suru at the end, this is just means hesitation. So N. Here. Suru. Dio suru? Okay, cool. Okay, we have one more. Cool. Betsu. Interesting. So the betsu and different. So betsu. Although they make the same sound, they're actually different kanji. That's really interesting. Okay, that's all the kanji we have. Okay, awesome. Add to a folder. We want to add to N3 Japanese. Cool. So, I had this stream plan to go on for another hour. So what we could do is we could look at the study set we did last time, and you guys can see how much I improved. So in case you guys weren't there last time, you get to see the words too. Okay, because I'm not, again, I study the kanji on my own. Study sets, only no kanji. Okay, we can go through this. Shuffle, need it. Oh, we're gonna start on one I don't remember. Ah, damn it. Need it. I think it's to resemble. To resemble. Okay, I did get that one right. Okay. Senzo. That's ancestor. Yeah. I'm so cool. Fusai. Married couple. Shimai. Shimai. Sisters, I think? Yeah, sisters. Okay. Oi, nephew. Itoko, cousin. Hitoriko, only child. Chichi oya, father. Hitori muzume. Hitori is only person, and muzume is daughter. I think this is the only daughter. Haha oya, mother. Fufu. That's husband and wife. chonan, chonan, that means eldest son. Chanan, that's the third eldest son. Chojo, chojo, that's eldest daughter. Oba, aunt. Me, niece. Oyako, oyako. Oh, okay. It's funny. It's better for me to see the kanji for this word to remember it now because I've been studying it. Oya is parent and ko means child, so it's parent and child. Oji, that's uncle. Ueko, that's youngest child. Sonke, sonke, that's respect. And sonkesuru is to respect. Sonkesuru. So kurina, to look alike. Exactly alike. Kind of what it means. It's like the adjective, like two people look alike. Jijo, that's second eldest daughter. Jijo. Jinan, second eldest son. Shindui, to lead, I believe. No, it's relatives. Ah, fuck. Okay. Well, I was doing pretty well. I have been studying this. Tsureru, that's to lead someone, to take someone. Sanjo, that's third eldest daughter. Yeah, okay, alright. So out of 26, I got one wrong. I don't know, I think that's pretty good. I think I'm doing pretty good. Yeah. Okay, that's, I guess, all of the studying we have today. Unless you guys want me to sit in silence as I write kanji over and over again. Which I'm fine with. I like the practice. I don't know. Let's go to just chatting. Okay. And thank you for the clap mic, girl. Microphone. Yeah, okay. You guys can hear me. So yeah. I could do a poll actually. I think that would be a good. Ooh, I gotta sit up. I'm slouching. Oh, I'm still slouching. Right. Hi, Yuma. Hi again, Yuma. Oh, I gotta switch to English keyboard. Do poll. Okay. Hi, Hood. You're you came at an interesting time, Hood. Hold on. What should we do? We could end stream now. We could I think the only other option is listen to me practice kanji. Silent. Okay, I don't know how to say this because there's a character limit. Okay, I'm gonna do a thing that's practice kanji, but the practicing kanji, all you guys are gonna see is the kanji that I'm currently practicing. You'll see my like browser windows, but you won't see the what I'm actually writing. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, so I'm gonna do... Okay, we're gonna start that poll. Okay, because we still have like 45 minutes of my allotted time for stream. Oh. So, vote! Vote! And it won't just be the kanji I'm practicing. I bring up kanji alive a lot of the time and swap between the two. So there'll be some movement on the screen, just not a lot. No, that's not an option. You can get that actually on Elfie's channel sometimes. When she watches YouTube videos. I have to vote kanji to not look like a massive ass who just joined and then wanted it to end. No, it's fine. I mean, cause like, you didn't know. It's not your fault, you know? Like, you could have come here expecting the normal Japanese practice. And then you just came a little too late, that's all. So you if you want deep dive on lore, Garfield lore, you have to go to Alfie's channel. Sorry. Oh my god. Apple, good. Only 3 of you have voted. I know there are more than 3 of you actively here. Okay, interesting. A vote? Where? There's a poll. Wait, if you're on mobile, I don't know if you can. There's a poll. I made a poll. You got less than a minute left though. Hold on. Just tell me what you want to vote for. If it's too late, and I'll count your vote. Because it's not your fault if you don't see it. It's either in stream now or practice kanji. Oh wow. Okay. Oh wow. I'm kind of surprised. I had to refresh. Got you. Overwhelmingly, it's practice kanji. Interesting. I guess you guys like me that much, huh? Yeah. Unfortunate. I mean, I'm not running ads right now, so. Okay, practice kanji. Okay, hold on. Hold on. I gotta do some setup. I gotta bring Quizlet back up because I might have closed it. Maybe. I voted to end stream. Jet, wow. Wow, Jet. Wow. Having Alexi stream too. Interesting. Okay. Go back to share. So the kanji I'm practicing is for the family set. I haven't gone through them. I've been busy. Okay? I've been very busy. Microphone. Okay, the microphone's working. Just making sure. Microphone is working this time. Okay, let me get my book. My theory is that gifted subs don't prevent. Oh, yeah, maybe, huh? Interesting. Okay, wait, I need to get my book. I'll be back. Ah. Hey. All now. I'm standing up. I'd like to talk to Twitch's manager. Haha. Okay. So today we're doing kanji practice. I remember I accidentally skipped one. And I did this, so hold on. No, we don't. Okay. Oh, fun fact, the notebook I used to study kanji, to practice kanji and not study it, I got it in Japan. It has Ariel from The Little Mermaid on it. And maybe I'll send the picture in the Discord later. Why don't they? Someone else paid good money to spare me ads. Yeah, I guess. I guess they had to make a difference to incentivize people to sub continuously because Twitch gets more money. Oh, God. Everything's falling. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Twitch gets more money from consecutive subs rather than gifted, so they need to incentivize that. Oh yeah, if you're on mobile, you have ads. Even I've seen ads on mobile Twitch of non-affiliates before. Twitch can eat your socks. Okay, fair, fair. So what I essentially do is I write the kanji. While I'm writing the kanji, I say out loud the pronunciation, and then after I write the kanji down, then I write down the meaning. So that's what I do. Yeah. Okay. I did these. I did not do this one. I skipped this one accidentally. That is, if I remember correctly, this is supposed to be eldest son, so it's chonan, right? Nan, yeah. So we're gonna go back to kanji alive app. .com. I would like app. Thank you. So no. Hey, can the right kanji show up for me? Okay. Let me write cho. There we go. Yes, this website's not perfect. It's kind of hard to navigate, but the good thing about this website is it teaches you the stroke order. I was writing these really small, but I think I'm gonna write them bigger. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to write these words 10 times each. Actually, I was doing 15 before. Let's do 15. Okay, so this kanji is cho. I was writing this, I think, yesterday. Cho has quite a lot of strokes. Oh, I wrote that so tiny. Wait. I'm gonna write it bigger. I'm so used to writing it tiny. Cho. And then the other one, nan. This is kind of what I meant, like, there really isn't much on this stream. Nan. So nan. And that means oldest brother. I don't think I'm gonna write the English this time. Nan. My handwriting for kanji is really messy, even though my normal handwriting is pretty neat. Oh. Oh. That's eldest Brother. Son, eldest brother. Guess it kind of means the same thing. Eldest son. Okay, this one is so messy when I write it. Oop, I wrote that wrong. Ah! I have one of those erasers that's like a little parfait. It's very cute, but I feel kind of bad using it. Oh. On. That looks like a person a little bit. Oh. On. Ah. Yeah, let me know if this is like too boring and I can just like end it. 1, 2. Okay, I'm just gonna have to fill up 2. Oh. I'm trying to rate this faster. Oh. None. It's always like the E part and oh that it's hard for me. Huh? Well, is this even ASMR? Is me just saying these words over and over again even ASMR though? So the good thing about the exercise I'm doing is essentially just saying it out loud and writing it down. Is because it doesn't really help me learn how to write it long term. However, it really helps with recognizing in reading. And right now, a lot of ASMR is just repeating the same thing over and over again. Really, I kind of hate watching ASMR, so like I wouldn't know. But if you guys like it, but like, yeah, so right now, obviously I'm gonna need to know how to write these kanji eventually. But for right now, I'm satisfied just recognizing it. Because while I'm pretty sure the JLPT, I have to check a practice test out, I'm pretty sure it has a written portion. If it's anything like the Japanese tests I've taken before, there's going to be a lot of multiple choice, so reading is arguably more important for me right now. Especially since one of the main reasons I'm learning Japanese, besides being like fluent, I guess, is I just want to read manga. I just want to read manga. I don't want the shitty fan translations anymore. I just want to read my own manga. So, yeah. Okay. Oh. Oh. Nope, I didn't finish the last word, so I have to write a none. So. Oh. I'm trying to do the stroke order correctly. There. None. None. Okay. That's totally understandable. Okay, Janan. I wrote that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I wrote that 14 times. I think that's okay. Okay, next one. And that means eldest son. Son. I did this one already because time I was practicing, I skipped. So this is Jinan, which is great because it's 2 kanji I've already technically practiced. That's another good thing about practicing kanji is that while I am practicing them as words, like combined kanji, I'm still learning the kanji. It's good. It's good. I'm gonna change this one to G. Okay. It's G. So I practiced this a little bit last night. G. None. One is gonna go a lot faster. Easier to write. G. None. Carol of the Bells has to be my favorite Christmas. Oh wait, I don't. Is that what's playing right now? I turned the music off for me because it was annoying me. I like studying. I'm a studier in complete silence. Oh, this is Jingle Bells. Oh. I like studying in complete silence. I can't take extra noise. Yeah. Same with sleeping. If there's like any noise, even white noise. Ugh. E? 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 None? E? None? Means second. E? E? None. E? Someday I'd kind of hope maybe get a tutor. Local strawberry dinosaur is deaf. More at 11. Ah, I'm not a strawberry. I'm peppermint. I'm a peppermint dinosaur. I'm a Christmas dinosaur. Who's you? Not strawberry. Peppermint. This is my Christmas outfit. I'm not deaf. I just turned it off. There's a difference. Pepperberry. I'll take it. You know what? I'll take it. I'll take Pepperberry. G? I gotta remember to look up and look at chat. G? G? E? That's second eldest son. Honestly, I'm waiting for 2 unique VTuber types right now. Santa VTuber and the final boss of VTuber. Oh, actually, there is a VTuber. He hasn't. Okay, maybe this is some spoilers, but he's not here right now, so he can't punish me. Okay, Professor Hardgrind is going to be a VTuber. So the persona you guys have seen on my channel, that's his VTuber avatar. It's something we talked about already. VTuber squared. Yeah. No. Okay, so the little guy, the little dude with the big hat and the scarf, right? Professor Hardgrind. Okay, that's not his persona. That's his persona's persona. His real VTuber's like a robot. Like a robot thing. Ah! Oh my god. Don't tell him I said that. It's still he's playing around with ideas, so we don't know if this is gonna be the final idea. Yeah, that already exists. Sorry. I can't believe he is the final boss, huh? Right, I'm checking to make sure he's not here right now. Yeah. Okay, I'm done with these. None. Sanjo. We beat the final boss. Do all of us VTubers die? No, we get liberated. I feel the same about that as when I finish a test. There's 10 more questions. Okay, just checking time. I'm just doing a time check. Okay, well, you know what's really easy is san. This kanji. It's just 3. It's 3 lines. It's san. I know this one, and I know this one. Sanjo. Jo is like female. Now we wake up to the new game plus. Ah, okay, fair. Sanjo. I don't need the kanji live for these ones, honestly. It's easy. San. Jo. 3rd eldest daughter. You finish a test, you think you're done, but then you turn the page over. Yep. San. Jo. I need to make sure I'm writing this. San. Jo. San. Jo. San. Jo. San. Jo. San. Jo. Jo. San. Jo. Also, shout out to those teachers who trick you by giving you half the test. What? What? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've literally never had a teacher do that before. That sounds so cruel. Why would someone ever do that? Okay. Sun. Yeah. Sun. Yeah. Sun. Yeah. Sun. Yeah. Sun. Yeah. Okay, that one's easy. Wow, san, nan. Crazy. I choked on my pen lid when that happened. Actual psychopaths just be like, here's a test. You're like, ace that, and then it's like, and part 2. Yeah. That's weird. Yeah, that I've literally never had a teacher or professor do that. That just seems wrong. And if they do that, I feel like it would have been like, yeah, a bunch of teachers were printing out tests. I only got the first pages done. I'll be right back, kind of thing. Like, they wouldn't just do it, you know? They would, like, warn us, probably. Okay. Done. Oh, that's the wrong kanji. Oopsies. Done. Kanji's harder to write. None. Done. None. 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 Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm gonna just check the posture first. Yeah, I have to bend. Okay, so this desk is like really, really, really short. So sadly, I literally can't have good posture when I write down on it unless I can shrink. Okay. Alright, no, I think I can fix my, oh, fuck. I'll hydrate in a sec. I keep dropping things. Okay. Yeah, I can lower my chair. So then I don't have to bend over. I forgot that was an option. Okay, I'll hydrate. There you go. Hydrate and sleep. I did one row. Okay. Oh, that was a curved line. We're doing a straight line. I feel like I'm in like first grade doing this. It's like learning the alphabet. Yeah. But thank you, Fettis. None. Sun. None. Sun. None. Sun. None. Sun. None. Sun. None. Sun. None. Okay, we got 15 minutes, so... Sueko. So I know the kanji. No ko. I know that one's child. Okay. Su. Oh, come on. Ko is such an easy one. Okay. Suet. It's kunyomi. Okay. Suet. It looks like so it has the radical tree in it. So like this part from like here lower, that's the radical for tree. Sometimes knowing the radicals can help you, and other times it doesn't. So this means youngest. So the last part, the end. In the context that we're doing it, it's a youngest child, so it's the last child. Last child to be born. So Suet. And then we got little tsu, and then ko. Ko is very easy to write. Yeah, ko. It. Do it. Oh. Ooh. Do it. Oh. Do it. Oh. I'm gonna have to do 3 lines of this one because it's 3, not 2. And I think I'll be writing the whole word 3 times. Not 3 times. 15 times instead of 14. Do it. Little tsu. And then pull. Do it. Yomi. So the difference between onyomi and kunyomi is one is a Chinese pronunciation and one is a Japanese pronunciation. In Japanese, you use both. One, I forgot which is which, but one of them you use primarily when it's only combined with other kanji, and the other one you use when it's combined with hiragana as well, like the word. So, a little complicated. We're using the kunyomi. I think the onyomi is Chinese. I think. Not sure though. Tsu. Tsu. Do it. Oh. Do it. Oh. Do it. Very easy kanji to write. Do it. You're both there. Oh. Do it. Oh. So typically when I study by myself, what I do is I will go over the vocabulary I need to. So this week has been the family stuff. After today, I'll be studying the friends and acquaintances section, right? So I'll do like 1 or 2 rounds of that. And then I'll spend the rest of the time I have allotted to the kanji, which is I'm kind of behind because I missed quite a few days of studying, admittedly. But yeah, they don't. I want them to kind of happen at the same time. So I'm studying the vocab and then doing the kanji at the same time. But obviously, I'm behind on the kanji. So it's kind of good that we can do some right now. Okay, I have to do one more line of this one. Do it. Oh. Oh. But. Oh. Do it. Oh. Do it. Oh. Okay. What time is it? Okay, yeah, I think we have time for like one more. Hitoriko. Okay, so this is gonna take up 4 lines. Hitoriko. I don't need to look up the order for that. These are pretty easy. So, for people who don't know, in this case, that's 1. Tori is person, and ko is child. This is just for pronunciation purposes. So hitoriko. 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 Okay. Like watching my mouth is like, is it moving? Hitoriko. So Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. I'm losing space. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Oh, one more line. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Okay. 1, 2. I only did that technically 12 times, but I'll do one more line actually. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Hitori. Ko. Okay, I've done it 15 times. You know, I think we'll end it there. That was a decent. I filled up almost an entire page. Good. That's good. Okay. Tomorrow's stream is so wait. Hold on. Let's go here. Okay. Okay. So we're done with the Nihongo today. Tomorrow's stream is special. We're doing Mario Kart with viewers. Yay! Yay! To celebrate 200 Twitch followers. Yeah, I'm really excited. So, I need to figure out how that works. But yeah, I'll be on here and I'll be playing Mario Kart, and you guys can play Mario Kart with me, which is gonna be fun. Excited. And I might ask if there are certain like regulars, like Elfie, Hood, people like that. I might just grant them permission in the Discord to like hop on the voice in the stream. Just you know, if people are playing over and over again and I know them, it's like, you know, might as well. Yeah, so we'll do Mario Kart with viewers. And then the next Nihongo stream that will be this Friday. Yeah, we're doing Game Dev on Wednesday and Pokemon on Thursday. Yeah, so that's this week. Which I'm gonna rate someone. So let's see. Oh my god, Akagi is streaming and it's not Final Fantasy? Wow, that's crazy. Great, crazy. I would like to copy link. Let's see if I can raid. I changed this though. Raid. We're gonna raid Akagi. Hopefully. There we go. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna put the raid message. If you don't have the emotes, you can unlock them fairly cheaply for channel points. Okay. Okay. Bye bye. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.